Hello everybody, this is Abraham with No Short Computer Services, and what we have here is 2017 MacBook Pro with a cracked screen. The manufacturing of this particular machine is quite fragile, to say the least. Over here, this whole bottom band it looks and feels plasticky, but it's actually glass. And that bottom band is actually part of the LCD, or it covers some very important parts. Don't know what happened here. Either dropped, either something was placed in here. So in short, the LCD got cracked. These MacBooks have really bad design as far as LCD goes, and they're expensive and they're very easy to damage. Excuse me. So for this one, what we're going to need, number one, is the replacement LCD. And before we begin any work, we want to visually inspect the LCD for any kind of imperfections, any kind of problems. And this one is a new unit, and it looks good. Came in a very heavy box, well padded, well insulated. So let's hope that this LCD is in good shape. Now, we turn this upside down. For the next bit, we're gonna need pentalobe screwdriver for regular MacBooks. We're gonna need hex star, multi-hex star driver. We're gonna need the tiny pentalobe. This is the same one that you use for opening iPhones. And this one, I believe, is the same thing, just a different version of this tool. Tiny pentalobe screwdriver. Okay, so we begin by removing the screws. Now, all these screws are different lengths. Now, also, not only are they different lengths, they're also security screws. Not in the fact that they're pentalobes, which is you have to have a special tool to open it, or just a small flathead screwdriver. If you have one that's hard enough, you can just jam it and open it. But you can see they're all different lengths. The security, I mean, these screws have dark coating on them, and if you open it and the system's under warranty, the manufacturer, Apple, will know that somebody was in the computer. So we have the long, short, long, and this one extra long. This one is extra long too. So move these away. Unlike the previous MacBooks, this one's a little trickier to pry open the backside. We're gonna need a guitar pick and well, something thinner than guitar pick. Preferably a blade. Basically just need to peel this off a little bit. Since I don't have a blade on me, I'm just gonna try and, oh, here, this is what we can do. You can use the nails, thin blade, or you can just stick a screwdriver in here. A thin screwdriver, just catch it a little bit and stick your, come on, there, stick your guitar pick in there. Okay, so this side is easy. You just stick the guitar pick and pry. There is two catches on either side, so we're just gonna, oh come on, I'm just gonna use a guitar pick to unlock them. So there's one. Let's get this side. There's another one. Now we're going to need to move this cover a little bit to there are catches over here, so to undo those we could wiggle, we could stick a guitar pick, we could just pull it, it'll come off. There. So this side just slides in and then snaps in. So these are the little catch things. On the inside, replacing an LCD on this one is, it's not nightmare, but it's fairly close to it. So first what you want to do is take a camera and snap a picture of how everything is laid out in this area. Camera through camera. So this area. Okay, there is a bunch of screws. You're going to need to remove all these screws, and a bunch of screws over here. And these. So let's just take a picture for later reference. If something gets forgotten, I find it to be quite useful to have a picture. And then we're just gonna take things apart. So these two plastic covers, they're just tiny hexes. And you can use this, the bottom, to store the screws. The bottom is formed like a little plate, and screws like to stay in there. So as you can see, there's a little tiny piece of plastic. Alright, keep it with the screws, and we'll do this side now. Pair of tweezers would be useful. Okay, next bit, we're going to disconnect the main LCD cable. So for that, let's see, yep. Oh, by the way, the size is T4 that I'm using on these screws. Now also make note of the lengths of the screws that you're pulling out of each placeholder. You know, Apple loves to use different sizes screws. These screws are also black. They have the black coating on top, so if you touch them, it will be visible. They'll become not black but shiny, and it'll be visible that this computer has been worked on. So if it's under warranty and you don't want to upset Apple, take it to Apple. They will know. They have all these built-in mechanisms for knowing whether the system was opened or not. This one's not under warranty, so there is no other choice. Next, we're gonna remove this metal things. Note that the way it's folded is this way, towards the top. So when you place it back, you place it back the same way. And the reason that you don't want to mess this up is if you put that folded metal piece down, it will eat through the cable and damage the cable, and over a short period of time, relatively speaking, the computer will stop working again, which we do not want happen. In fact, there is, unless each minute of your time is incredibly valuable, I'd say no rush in doing this job. This job requires patience. Okay. Next, we're going to remove 4 screws that hold down the LCD logic board. And this one we're using is T5. And it's nice to have a tool magnetized so that when you pull your screws out, they stick to the screwdriver. I had it magnetized. There's a little tool that can do mag and demag, magnetize, demagnetize your metal tools. Sometimes you want it magnetized, other times you want it demagnetized. Okay, so what we have here is this LCD cable loose. Now what we're gonna need to do is remove the antenna board. Okay, so for this one we're gonna be using the little tiny pentalobe screwdriver, the same one that you would use to open your iPhone. Because these screws are so tiny, what you want to do is lay them out separately on a white piece of paper. They're all the same, they're just very tiny. Same kind of or size of the screw as they hold the keyboard down on these Macs. I don't know if this one has a keyboard screwed in or riveted, but those that are riveted, you would pull the rivets out and replace it with these tiny screws. The first revisions of these computers had the screws, then they decided, why should we use the screws? Let's save a few bucks and use tiny rivets. Then they'll be using glue. In fact, this particular computer, the only thing that's not on board is the hard drive. And of course, the hard drive is a weird format. This is the hard drive right here. You gotta peel off this tape. It will come out. Remove the screws and peel off the tape. And of course, it doesn't use any standard or anything standard, because Apple is the standard. They can afford to develop their own standards for their own equipment, and they don't have to share it with the world. So nobody can really manufacture this under license from Apple, as far as I know. and Apple doesn't really sell parts. You cannot go to Apple and say, "Hey Apple, I need some parts here." They'll say, "Sorry, mister, we don't sell parts because we're not in business of repair, we're in business of selling." And you say, "Well, this thing's broken and it was $2,500." And they say, "So how is that our problem?" So unless somebody else makes it their problem, they will not make it their problem. Enough chatting, ranting. So the antenna board is not held in by any glue or anything special, just kind of sits in there. There's another screw here that needs to be taken out, and there is enough space in this aluminum bridge to take that out. So an antenna board comes out as a whole thing. Okay, so now we have basically freed the cables for the LCD. Now we need to take out these two things. They are little tiny springs, and those little tiny springs, as you open and close the top section of the LCD panel, they coil or help coiling the cables or help manage the cables so they're winding and unwinding properly. All right, so I'm gonna, and this is T4 screwdrivers, and these screws are relatively long. So now this computer is still under power, and I deliberately left it under power because I'm not working in the circuit board, and there's just too much stuff to disconnect. So if you're going to be working with computer under power, make sure that you do not drop any screws into the circuit board. Okay, so here are those little springs. Now we need to pull out these 6 screws. Okay, and that one, it's not it. Let's just fit which one fits. Okay, and that one is a T8. So we have 6 screws that hold down the top section to the bottom section, or top half to the bottom half. Now I do not see any thread locker. Oh yeah, there is a little bit of a thread locker on these bolts. So the thread locker is important because these screws can unscrew themselves, and I've seen it quite a bit on older models. Basically they wiggle themselves loose. However, using a thread locker might lock the screws too much, so we're not going to. Now the two parts are basically separated, but we need to now lift the hinges so that we can pull them apart. And we use just let's see, this one's T10, the biggest one, and we're just gonna open these hinges like that. Just stick it in there and get it under angle. Give it some angle. Okay, and now we can raise it more. And we could just keep going as we raise the bottom half. We'll be raising or pulling these hinges to a 90-degree or more until they basically release. So we're just gonna keep pulling them. Can actually stick it on the other side. Let's use a smaller one and keep going. You can also just lay the computer and there you go. So now the top half is separated from the bottom half. We'll just lay the top half aside. Okay. Do not rush to throw this out. Okay. Now, bottom half, we're gonna need to put these hinges at a little more than 90 degrees. So we're gonna be using T10 right here. Okay. Remove that. Okay, a little more than 90 degrees right there. Let's remove this Kapton tape. We don't want to put it together and then find that we haven't removed something. Let's see, we could just cut right through it. Just use something sharp. There you go. Okay, we'll take this one out. Just gonna bend it backwards back there. Okay, and we're gonna take this one, right, and we're gonna take this one. Just so you know, this is a protective coating on the LCD, so no big deal. Now this one we need to go back. This one will need to go back. All right, and we are going to wiggle our top section back in. Now be extremely careful. Like I said, these are not very well designed machines as far as fragility goes. Okay, you could damage something and regret it, because believe me, these screens are not cheap. I don't know if they're made of gold or what, but they're certainly not cheap. Not by a long shot. Okay, this particular one was very, very expensive. Okay, so we're going to stick one screw in each side, not tighten it all the way, because I want to make sure that this thing centers itself. Okay, so we snug fit it. Then we're going to open it, close it, and now we can put the rest of the screws in, and we're still not tightening it to the full spec. Okay. Okay. Last big screw goes in. Okay. I have them all snug fitted, not tightened yet. We are going to open this and check the gaps to make sure that we are not doing anything too drastic. Okay, so looks good. Everything seems to work just fine. So reverse order. First thing we do is put this little spring-loaded things back in, and on these you could just use the little torque if you have the insert. Just use the insert, not even a screwdriver, because they are they're not hard to put it back in. All right, so we're going to hand tighten everything, and afterwards I'm going to put it on a screwdriver and tighten it properly. Okay, so excuse me, got something in my throat. Okay, so we have the other side, and after this we're gonna put in a couple of screws just to hold the LCD logic board down. I want to connect and see if there is anything wrong with our LCD panel. You do not want to finish the job and then discover, well, there is a problem with the LCD. Ooh, jumpy. That's one thing you don't want happening. That could short circuit something for you and cause damage that you don't want. Okay, so just snugly put it in. Let's reconnect our LCD cable. We'll put another screw into here. Remember, we still have to put that antenna board, but we don't need antenna board to just test things out. So let's see if it works. Like an iPad, it may be that the computer may need to be reset. Shift, Control, Option, Power. Come on. The fan is on. No, fan is not on. Okay. Now the fan is on. So let's see. And it lives. So as you can see, it doesn't look like there is a damage to the LCD, but I want to make sure it boots up all the way. And under close inspection, no dead pixels and no damage. Okay, so we're gonna close it. Now, on iPads, if you replace the LCD and turn it on, it doesn't go on. So this one has the same kind of scary problem where if you put it back together, you do not see a response. So if your computer was not shut down and you replaced an LCD, you need to restart by doing the key combination that I showed you, that basically resets your power. Okay, so now I should probably disconnect this. Okay, and insert our trusty antenna board in place. Come on. Alright. So with the antenna board, everything lines up the way it's supposed to. Okay. So we're gonna put our screws back in, and now that I've disconnected the logic board again, the LCD logic board, we may have to restart or reset the power on the computer again. We'll see that. It does help to have a steady hand. If your hands shake, be very careful, because the components on these things are super tiny and unforgiving. Let's see. I think I put the wrong screw in the wrong place. Come on. Price you pay for forgetting tweezers. Come on, screw. Let's do this. Alright, so these two boogers are different. So this one is a little longer. I did not. Okay, that one's from there. I'm using the wrong torque. This one's from here. The rest are happy. Happy as clams. Okay. Okay, so a little longer here, a little longer here, two shorter ones over here. That's all good. We are going to have to open so that this winds where it's supposed to go, and then we'll clamp it down. So let's put this back where it belongs. Let's put this little guy where it belongs. Again, the wrong torque. And this one's what, T5. So T5 goes over here. Little antenna cable. So Apple says we are not going to use any circuit boards that are separate from our logic board. Put everything on board, basically. Now there's plus and minus in that. So the positive to have the logic board all inclusive is there are fewer connections. Fewer connections, fewer things could go wrong. That's positive. Negative, if something goes wrong, you throw away everything. But Apple's idea is, well, so what? Throw it away. Get a new one. Get a replacement. But they're not saying replacement motherboard. They're saying replacement computer. And I have a little problem with that because they're not selling their computers for, $300. Now, that might be what these things really cost, but I'd rather replace the part that went bad. And Apple says, no, you replace the whole computer. The whole computer went bad. So if your Wi-Fi isn't working, your whole computer replaced. Your hard drive isn't working, your whole computer is bad. Your memory is not working, your whole computer is bad. And I've seen some bad memory chips. They go bad. Granted, I haven't seen an Apple computer with onboard memory go bad. So, don't know what to make of it. I cannot believe that they never go bad. Memory chips that are soldered into the board. I believe I just didn't see it happen. If that happens, SOL. Detaching the chips is a nightmare. Reattaching the chips is a double nightmare. In short, if you have a bad chip on your motherboard, it's a nightmare. Okay, so what I just did, I put in all these screws, and there's 6 on this side, 6 on this side. Just tighten them. Let's open up our computer and see how So what I'm looking at is how the cables are winding in, okay? The travel of the cable. By the way, the LCD is on, so that's good. Good to see, good to know. And I'm gonna inspect whether the work I've done is good. Yep, the cables are traveling the way they're supposed to travel. It looks like we're gonna need to pinch the cable. Looks like the assembly of this thing should be done in this, like this, I should say. Because once you close it, this loop gets bigger. Okay, but we can assemble it this way. Okay, so we have our antenna board in. We're gonna bring our rest of the little screws and start. Let's see, T4. Gonna start putting them in. So magnetized definitely helps. So let's put this one in, and as you can see, I have it all the way at the side. I'm just gonna pinch it like that. All right. Put the other screw in, and it almost feels to me like this is a little longer than it should. So before I tighten these, I'm gonna open the screen and make sure that our loops are properly aligned. Okay. I am not particularly fond of this system from repairability standpoint. Also, I don't like when cables like this are actually exposed because of what people do with computers. In other words, what I'm saying is over here, these cables are actually exposed. And if you stick something in there, I don't know what for, but you damage those cables. And there is no way to repair them but replace the whole thing. So let's check our loopy loops. And they seem to be good, so we can tighten our little screws here, and we're going to be good to go. So let's see. I'm just going through all these loose ends, so to speak. Okay, now we have two more little covers. So this one holds the connector in place and the other one holds the cable in place. And even though the screws are all different sizes, they're all T4s. And on one hand, I like working on apples because it's like working on really fine equipment. But unfortunately, this is not Swiss watch. This is a computer. And computers tend to break, tend to overheat, tend to fail. So what Apple says is, our computers don't break, our computers don't fail, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time with that because they do. These things are incredibly complex devices. Incredibly complex devices. And they will eventually fail. Oh, you know what? I'm using T5. This one's T4, so that's why I'm struggling. These things are tiny. Alright, so that's good. Okay, so let's place these things back in. Oh, before we do that, we need to tighten our big things, the big guns. Alright, so let's tighten them all the way. Now, I do not have torque specifications on this, but I guarantee you, if you make them tight, now not too tight, they'll work just fine. And this is experience talking. I have worked on a project which was a car, and I was doing everything by the torque specifications. And in two places, the book, in my opinion, was wrong. because where those screws went into was a soft aluminum, and the torque specs were way more than that aluminum could handle. So I tried it, felt like nope, I'm about to strip the threads, and I didn't go with the torque. So sometimes it's better to use your head. Okay, so now we're just going to put the torque in a screwdriver, tighten them, and before actually assembling, we are going to test one more time the fact that our screen still works despite everything we did with it. And then I'm just gonna leave it on, opened and on. And the reason you want to do that is if there is any kind of manufacturing issue with the LCD, with the matrix, you know, the Retina matrix, or whatever you call that, it will show up through the fact that you give it a burning time. Burn in time, not burning time. Okay, this screen is on. Everything seems to work the way it's supposed to. We're just gonna do a restart. And we're on. So the computer is ready. As ready as it would ever be. Okay. Last fun part. Normally I would use air spray to clean this out. There is no dust in here, so now we are going to fit this in place, and the way you do it is you align the sides like so. Come on. Not willing to align. Come on, side. All right. Yes, I believe you could have done this a little more precise. Okay. So that seems to be good. Just push it in. Push it in. Lock it in place. Back side is on. Bring in the different sizes of screwdrivers. Bring in our pentalobe driver. Okay, the longest ones go here. Okay. The semi-longest ones go here, which I think I messed up. This looks to be a super long, and this one is not as long. Oh, hold on a minute. Wrong one. Okay, that's the culprit. Okay, so this goes here. You know, Apple, you didn't have to make them all different sizes. Could have engineered this thing to have them all the same size, but I know why it's done. So that people take it apart, pay no attention which one goes where, take it back to Apple because they messed it up, and Apple says, oh, you've opened it. You've opened the damn thing. Pay us. Buy a new machine. And never open it ever, ever, ever. Okay, job's done. Last check. Screen's on. So I'll leave the peeling to the customer. They love to do that. Just gonna run some clean and it's done. So hex driver, iPhone opener, and guitar pick. Tweezers is another one that you would want to have with you. Hopefully this helps somebody. I appreciate your watching. I know it's a bit long, but I thought this is one-to-one, uncut, unedited. This is how it's done. So give me likes if you like it. Subscribe if you feel like you want some more of these kind of videos. If you have any questions, leave it in comments. And hopefully you'll have a good day and enjoy preparing the MacBooks.